Hello there, I'm Nick, and this is the Film Apologist. No, I'm not talking about Sonic, or even video games. I'm talking about a movie today. What are you gonna do about it? Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. Fair warning, we will talk about spoilers a little later on, and I will let you know when we get into it. But I'm gonna tell you right now, if you're concerned about that, you need to get off the internet. I'm not kidding. This is not gonna stay under wraps. You have been warned. But yeah, let's take a break from video games. As you know, at least once a year, I take a little bit of a break to talk about a bad film. And make no mistake, Venom, Let There Be Carnage is terrible. But it's the kind of terrible you may actually enjoy. Did you like the first movie? Well, then you're fine. Go see it. That's all you need to know. And if you were expecting anything better than the last film, well, that's kind of on you, because this is the same level of quality. There are a couple of improvements here and there, but this is your basic Sony schlock. Yes, they helped elevate the superhero genre with the original Spider-Man movies, and recently they gave us one of the freshest big-budget animated movies I'd seen, and arguably one of the best Spider-Man movies ever made with Spider-Verse, but somehow they always end up back in this post-Matrix era of anti-hero garbage like Blade Trinity, Daredevil, or Sony's own Ghost Rider. Still, there's something unique about those flicks, and at least, if nothing else, they are stupid fun. And you would have to expect that from something that's inspired from the 90s nonsense that was Venom Lethal Protector. But even all those flicks I mentioned had at least some blood in them. You bring in Carnage to a PG-13 flick? Yeah, that works about as well as you'd expect. Look, I went into this like I would a Godzilla movie. I'm not here for the human characters. I'm here for the monsters. And when Venom and Carnage finally fight, it's a lot of fun, but good God, the amount of time wasted just to get to that point is exhausting. Like I said, there are some improvements to this film, but overall it carries the same issues as the first. Inconsistent tone, horrible pacing, garbage dialogue. It is rough. I mean, yeah, I guess the villains are better than the first movie, but they ain't great. And the plot is, well, it's something. The film kicks off following the character everybody's here to see, Shriek. Or is it Screech or Scream or something? I don't know. Marvel tried to make her a prominent figure during Maximum Carnage back in the 90s, and she leaves just as much of an impact here as she did there. So she's in this penitentiary with Cletus Cassidy. And she has these supersonic screaming powers, and apparently they're getting way too strong. At least that's what she tells the actor who's supposed to represent young Cletus Cassidy, who looks nothing like Woody Harrelson, but don't you fret, because Woody horribly dubs over this guy. And then he gets real upset because Not Black Canary is being taken away from him. And they do that by putting her in some handcuffs and into the back of a prison wagon, where she lets off her supersonic scream and knocks the truck over. The entire reason she was being taken to a different facility was because her powers were getting too strong, and nobody thought to secure her mouth? We are not even 3 minutes into this movie, and I'm already questioning the logic here. Well, don't you worry, because the cop she screeches at shoots her in the eyeball, and it looks like she's dead, but she's not actually dead. She wakes up in Ravencroft, and her eye is just fine. It's just a different color now. And I'm really having a hard time trying to understand why they felt it was necessary for such a drastic gap in time between when she's carted off compared to present day. I think it's just for a nothing reveal that a detective we follow was the one that shot her, but like that's it. As for everything else after this opening, it's honestly all an awkward blur. Eddie and Venom are having a hard time living together, and if you like that super silly slapstick Venom, well, you're in luck, because that is him the whole movie. Like, I don't think he ever once drops into that scary version of the character that we heard in the first flick, which is really cool. He just carries that silly tone throughout. And the distinct difference between Tom Hardy's take on Eddie versus his take on Venom is starting to blur a bit. You can hear his voice in both versions. They kind of merge between them. And I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it just didn't sound as cool as the first movie. Man, Eddie is still all twitchy and weird. He's not super great at hiding that symbiote. I have no idea how nobody knows who he is. A woman literally peeped on them while they were arguing in a bathroom stall, which is the first place we get to see the symbiote in this movie. And oh yeah, that detective I was talking about earlier, that's Detective Mulligan. And he's called an Eddie because Cletus Cassidy, the captured serial killer from the end credits of the last movie, wants to speak to Brock and only to Brock. And expect to see a lot more Mulligan because he's a central character, and I didn't realize that until halfway through this movie. And why are all these dudes in San Francisco sounding like they come from the East Coast? I mean, I guess Eddie moved over there, but what's Mulligan's story? He's been here for decades at this point, right? Whatever, I don't know. Anyway, Eddie goes to see Cletus, who asks him to print some poetry in the paper for him. The significance of that, what it means, I have no idea. I thought it was like special code or something, like maybe Shriek is supposed to meet Cletus at this particular spot. I mean, maybe it's a reference for the final act set piece. I'm literally guessing. I do not remember. This was so sloppily implemented. And it doesn't matter anyway because Cletus and Shriek spend all of their time together. I don't know. And in the same scene, Venom has Eddie take a peek into Cletus's empty cell, which is filled from top to bottom with actual doodles of landmarks where Cletus has buried bodies that police have never tracked down. And Venom has to draw it out for Eddie's dumbass back home, taking a page out of Rise of Skywalker's playbook, lining up some coastal rocks with a perfectly shot photo that Venom finds on Google image search. And also apparently symbiotes have internet powers in this movie. Anyway, Eddie reports this, which makes Mulligan angry because Eddie was, I guess, holding out information, but he didn't get that from his conversation with Cassidy. It was literally written on his cell. How is this not analyzed by the police? How did they not find it themselves? Cletus is like a shitty Riddler. And why is Mulligan mad? The police have to go track it down anyway. And regardless of how that information was taken, Eddie would have been given credit for sussing it out. God, my head hurts. This movie has barely started. While all this is going on, Eddie's ex, I've literally forgotten her name, takes him out to dinner to announce she's getting engaged, and Eddie gets real bummed about it. Venom tries to cheer him up, but it all just adds to the tension between the two. And somewhere in all of this, Eddie gets a postcard from Cletus asking Eddie to pop by one last time before he gets a lethal injection, as Eddie's article led to these missing bodies, which led to Cletus getting the death sentence. So Eddie figures the least he can do is pop by, and look, it doesn't matter. This is the scene where Cassidy bites him and gets a bit of the symbiote, okay? That's all I was waiting for every time these two spoke. That's all that matters. It finally happens here. And there's plenty more Tom and Jerry cartoonery garbage that happens between Eddie and Venom until they finally split, and then Carnage is born during Cassidy's lethal injection. And I gotta admit, that's pretty awesome. The CG is kinda shit, but Carnage looks like a proper horror monster and crawls through the prison like this is a game of carrion. And you should play that if you haven't. It's rad. I should mention though that he can just make tornadoes, I guess. He just does it in the middle of the prison. Didn't know he could do that, and he never does it again. They also give Carnage these stock basic roars. We couldn't give him something creepier and more unique? And yes, the lack of blood is a glaring issue for me. It just takes me right out of it. Yeah, I have to consider it a mark against the movie. I'm sorry, it's Carnage. You know what? Screw this summary. Spoilers ahoy, kids, because it plays out as stupidly as possible, and I need to be a bit of a comic geek for a little while. The rest of the movie follows Carnage as he busts out Shriek, and they go on a little rampage, and it also follows Eddie and Venom on their separate stories while they're split up, but they're eventually reunited by his ex and her super patient fiance, Dan. Nobody actually cares about this stupid plot. We knew what we were getting into here. All I cared about was how Carnage was going to be represented. And yeah, the prison scene and the final fight are a lot of fun, and if that sounds good to you, go check this out. But like I whined about from what I wanted to see from the last Venom movie, from that last video I did, I gotta do the same for how Carnage was brought to the big screen. This is his first ever film appearance, and wow, is it tame. Carnage is a very simple concept. It's the Joker with Venom's abilities. And while they didn't need to copy Joker's mannerisms, I mean, they certainly attempted to copy the Joker and Harley relationship, at least the Joker-Harley relationship as it would be interpreted by some somebody posting on Facebook who doesn't actually understand the point of their relationship? Cletus should feel like a terrifying creature even without the symbiote, and he just doesn't here. He feels like Woody Harrelson, and I get the casting, I do. It's the same guy from Natural Born Killers. It makes some kind of sense, and this dude has been around quite a while. He knows how to act, and I'm sure he could pull this off with a little better direction or a better script, but I'm sorry, it just doesn't work for me here, both as Cletus or as the symbiote. I wanted that high-pitched, cackling lunatic Carnage with this insane bloodlust that just went on a rampage that nobody could ignore. And as weird as it might be to nitpick this, his voice as the symbiote is way too deep and way too measured. And I don't like that Cletus and the symbiote are two separate entities. Carnage was terrifying because it's still Cletus, a serial killer with unstoppable powers. He was all the terror and evil Venom was no longer allowed to be after Marvel decided to make him an anti-hero. His very presence should be sending this entire city into a state of panic. But you never get that sense, no matter how many conveniently placed news reports tell you otherwise. He is a mass serial killer, but the only thing the movie cares about is his quest to reunite with Shriek. And I understand this relationship is meant to be a representation for what divides Cassidy and Carnage, and all this acts as a counter to the theme of unity and teamwork that Eddie and Venom needed to work through. But again, it's not super well conveyed at all. Venom and Eddie have these awkward fights, and they do a good job showing how much of a hassle it would be to have a symbiote, but when they get back together, it's with this insincere, awkward apology. And then the ex and the detective are captured to coax Eddie to this church where Cassidy is going to marry Shriek, and the title and promos and all this imagery play up some religious themes, but they don't really do anything with that. I think it's just all here to look cool. And when Carnage and Venom finally meet, Venom says, "Oh shit, it's a red one. That's bad news." And Carnage says, "Hey, that's my dad, and I want to kill him." And I would have loved all of that to be expounded on, because that sounds way more interesting than all this other garbage I had to slog through to get to this point. Maybe they're alluding to stuff in the future. Maybe we'll get this in Venom 3. Nope. Venom wins the very first encounter they've ever had with each other, eats Carnage, and then Cassidy's head. That's the big bad of the movie, everyone. Venom's ultimate rival. Still one of the most popular Marvel villains ever created. And he's dead. This should have been the entire movie. What's going on with Carnage? Why are red symbiotes so dangerous? Give me some of that symbiote lore. This would have made way more of an impact if Venom got his ass kicked throughout this movie by this symbiote, struggling to keep up instead of winning their very first and only fight. And also, what actually kills these guys? Because he got stabbed 1,000 times, and Eddie came out just fine. And how did Cassidy not get killed by the merger with Carnage? Was he just the perfect match? They didn't go into that. They firmly established that symbiotes kill hosts, and it takes one unique person to perfectly match with. I guess Cassidy was that because Venom killed plenty of people in this movie. And how did Carnage come about anyway? Is this just how symbiotes reproduce? Is biting just your kink venom that just sends you right over the edge and just couldn't hold it in?
I have tasted blood before, and that is not it.
No, that's actually alien jizz. You're pregnant, by the way. They do give a little backstory on Cletus murdering his family through some Diary of a Wimpy Kid animation, but that's all we really ever get for Cletus. He was already in jail for the teaser in the last movie. I would have loved to see why he is so dangerous instead of being told he's so dangerous. All we get from this guy is from behind prison bars. We see some violence after he's merged with the symbiote, but even then, Cletus Cassidy is not as cold as Carnage, and just, And the red symbiote's motivations are never explained. He just wants to kill Venom, and I would love to know why. And Pup was right. This dude's teeth should have been black. Make him look a little bit different from Venom. So much of Carnage's appearance was already deflated by Riot in the first movie, and the sequel did not help matters at all. This is not a character who should be in a weird, awkward comedy, which is what this movie is. And I know it's to be expected with what came out before, but if you're really gonna do two Venom movies without the traditional origin, then this should be the superhero take on a horror film. God, they get so close occasionally and then they just wimp out and make some garbage basic schlock instead. Hell, the Venom comics went horror for a little while as well. Granted, they mostly just redid John Carpenter's The Thing, but it's effective and Carnage would play into that wonderfully. Start off as a slasher flick with aliens and then that builds into citywide chaos. I don't know. I'm just talking about ideas I wanted. As a film itself, it's dumb. It has a meandering plot with dumb characters and a confused tone, but all of that said, I'd imagine a lot of people left the theater quite happy thanks to the mid-credits tease. So yeah, alright, I'm gonna talk about it quickly. So if you still don't know what I'm talking about, this is your last spoiler warning. Turn this off now. Alright, so after everything's wrapped up, Venom and Eddie hit up a beachside hotel, and while they're laying in bed talking about the history of the symbiotes, and just for a moment there I thought they were gonna show off a tease for Null, and Sony, you're not ready for that, the room suddenly changes. It goes from night to day, the interior design is completely different, and there are towels folded into swans on the bed, and the voice of J. Jonah Jameson can be heard on the TV screen. And as the camera turns, we see Tom Holland's Spider-Man on the television set, outed as Peter Parker. Yeah, that crazy shift was because Venom had just experienced the Thanos snap and return, which means, yeah, in some sense, he is in the same universe as Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And look, really, what else could that teaser have been? Nobody would have cared about literally anything else otherwise. This is the only thing people would have been hyped about. I don't know how Eddie snapped in at a point that was clearly established to be way after the snap happened. Or it could be Loki or Doctor Strange or something else. I don't know. I know the internet has a whole bunch of theories out there. Take your pick. Or why he gives a shit about Peter Parker at all. He licks the screen. I don't know why. And yeah, it's kind of sad that we have to be hyped about Spider-Man's Dark Mirror villain actually getting a chance to meet Spider-Man. You gotta love this stupid studio mess. But all that said, oh my god, it is so good to finally get confirmation that Tom Holland's Spidey is somehow connected to this version of Venom. Spidey season is in full swing, pun fully intended. And you know what? It was worth sitting through this dumbass movie just to get to the stinger. I had a big, dumb smile on my face. Maybe this means Holland's Spidey shows up in Sony flicks. Maybe this means Venom gets to be in a movie that's actually well written and directed. I don't know. But if it brings me a proper movie black suit and my white spider logo on Venom, I don't care. I will be that shallow. Give me that fan service. I am here for it. I love it. I'm excited. This is a stupid movie, but it's got a lot of fun moments. And even if it wasn't perfect, I was still happy to see Carnage on the big screen. And yeah, I still love this version of Venom. I just want them to decide on a tone and put him in a decent movie. Yes, this was exactly what I expected, both from this studio and from this character, but man, it would be great to be as surprised as the Venom comics as of late have been surprising me. This character is awesome. Let's treat him with a little bit of dignity. But yeah, I've said all I could really say about this movie. I'm sorry for the low effort editing here, but every time I put up a movie video, Sony loses their damn minds, and I'm not going to put up all this effort if this video is just going to be making them money. I just wanted to give you my thoughts fresh out of the theater and get this out of my system. So thank you for everybody who's been sticking around, and if you enjoyed this, let me know what you think, because I'm going to be coming into a lot more free time where I could be producing a lot more videos, and if you want to see a little bit of variety on this channel, I would love to provide it to you. So give me that feedback, and if you are feeling generous, you can, of course, share this with people, comment down below, all the stuff you know what to do on YouTube. If you're feeling extra generous, you can, of course, contribute to the Patreon. We are going to be making some changes to that soon, and hopefully I'm providing some decent perks. So all of that will be in the description below. All of that said, let me give an extra special shout out to these folks who contributed to the Turtloid Warrior tier. That includes Kyle Winter, Joseph Duncan, Sonic 2 Blue, John, the Spectacular Spider Macy, Faizan Razul, Trey Nobles, Hatsworth, Nick S, Tristan Trapp, Meekers, Dun Dun, John the Real Wawa Luigi, Miles the Prower, Jeremy Singer, Mr. Boojay, Rain, Sam Webster, Dwight Graham, Fishflop, Lucas Lipker, The Bad Pal, Shoden, Mr. SP, Cecil the Glade, The Dark Neon, Missing No, Stefan Plakanica, hopefully I got it right this time, 3 Monic, Graham J. Hall Audio, Leonard Zex, Wayne is Boss, Jamie Chevalier, Letterick, Beanie, 64 Bits, Brian Rolfs, The Lumberjack, Miles Prower Radio Hour, Otis Small, Shifting Flesh, and Mute. Thank you all so much for your support. I cannot thank you guys enough. It really means the world to me. And unfortunately, I've got to wrap this up because I have a gargantuan Sonic Colors video to get out the door, and I think you guys have been waiting long enough for that, so I'm gonna get back to work. So until next time, toot toot, you serial killers.